This is the One Tree Hill Rewatch. Today we're going to be talking about episode 13 through episode 17. Okay, so episode 13 is called Hanging by a Moment. Now, to me, I've always seen this in my head as the mid-season finale. It wasn't. And actually then I thought that it was the, 3/4 of the way season finale that they usually do in, February or March to break up before we get to, the last little bit of the season. It's not even that. It's actually just came out in it came out February 10th, 2004. So it was just another episode, which is really surprising because it's a huge episode with a big cliffhanger. A lot happens in this episode. The first thing I want to mention is if you're new to One Tree Hill and you haven't seen the episode before, do not read the description on both Hulu. I'm not sure I have all the DVDs, but during this rewatch, we're just watching on Hulu because it's more convenient. So I'm not sure what the description in the box says. I'd have to go back and take a look at it, but even online I was looking and the description gives away the entire episode, which is weird. I wonder if the description back then gave away the episode, but I don't know. Once again, one of the best episodes of the season. As I said, a lot about episodes, but there's definitely a handful that's the best, and this would be in it. This episode builds up and you think that the Lucas, Peyton, and Brooke love triangle is finally going to come to a head. Spoiler, it doesn't end up coming to a head in this episode, but it definitely builds on it, right? So the whole episode is Lucas and Peyton sneaking around, adding to their relationship, and them wanting to be together but not sure how to break up with Brooke, or reveal to Brooke the truth. Haley sees Lucas and Peyton together, which really upsets her. So that plays into the rest of the episode of an argument between them that ultimately affects her in the next episode when Lucas is in the hospital, that, he might not wake up, and then she would never get to, get his forgiveness, pretty essentially. And she's just really upset about it, so that happens. The whole episode's building up to Karen coming back. Really for Lucas and Keith, but mainly for Keith because of what happened in the airport. In the last episode they were together, and Keith wanting to be with Karen and then be a couple when she gets back. And he's nervous about it, so he's had a few drinks throughout the episode. He's not drunk, but he does have a few drinks to take the edge off, which plays into him kind of being sort of careless at the red light when he turns on a guided turn and gets in the car crash, which we'll get to in a second here. The episode builds up Brooke more as this kind-hearted, lovable character, wanting to add more to the audience getting upset over this love triangle and, picking sides of who they would want to be together. And just making the whole cheating thing just more disgusting as it was. The episode also shows Dan alone and how he's dealing with that, and the neighbor Carrie, which, by the way, don't really like them using. I know it's real life, but I don't really like them using same character names multiple times throughout the show, because there's also another character named Carrie who is pretty big that comes later in the line, and obviously this character came first, so I don't know why you didn't pick a different name for that character down the line, but whatever. So there's kind of a flirtatious relationship between her and Dan, and they're going to have dinner. But, Dan, especially after he sees a picture of him and Deb, is I'm married, pretty much nothing's going to happen other than us eating this dinner. And she's well, our, spouses aren't here. She's revealed that she's married to. Our spouses aren't here. Blah, blah, blah. And then Deb walks in. So then there's this moment, Dan follows Deb back to the cafe. He wants to move back home. He wants to try to fix things, and she's like, no, I want a divorce. I've had enough. Nathan and Haley also get in the fight, which plays into the next episode, because Nathan kind of reveals that, where he does reveal that they were originally only started to get together because he was trying to mess with Lucas. Obviously that's not the case at this point, they're all in it, but that's what started that. Then we get to the car crash. Dan gets out, saves Lucas, ends up taking them to the hospital and giving the surgeon's permission to operate on Lucas because he's his father. Very good ending scenes, builds in motion, very good music playing, different shots of all the different characters and where they are at the different moments. But I do have a problem with the last scene. I do think it's stupid, is that they make a Lucas flatline. It's just like a trope for a show to do something like that. And it's not even like, a mid-season finale, even a 3/4 finale, whatever. It's just like another episode. So I don't know why you felt like you needed to do that flatline. You could have just ended with him showing him in surgery and us wondering what's going to happen. Because ultimately, that flatlining doesn't really, other than them mentioning in the next episode that they lost him for a bit, it doesn't play into anything else moving forward. The next episode is 114, I Shall Believe. Now, this episode is really about Lucas being in a coma and how the other characters are responding to this, or mainly the other characters that have a relationship with Lucas are responding to this. They paint up the river court, trying to make him feel better when he wakes up, being in good spirits. We get Karen and Brooke meeting, who I'm not sure how that relationship's going to work out at first, but then they seem to like each other, or Karen seems to like Brooke. Brooke obviously likes Karen from the beginning because she doesn't have a relationship with her parents. Peyton can't handle to be around Brooke in this episode, so she's staying away from the hospital, which means away from Lucas too, which is bothersome to her. Karen blames Keith in this episode because she finds out that he was drinking, so she tells him she doesn't want him to be at the hospital, which is a big break in their relationship as characters, and plays a big part in the show moving forward in a lot of events, I guess. Nathan and Haley are still fighting this episode until, of course, Nathan goes to see Lucas at the hospital because Haley can't, because she's upset. And he goes to see Lucas, talks to Lucas, Luke touches his hand and wakes up. And then Nathan comes and tells Haley, and then Haley goes to see Lucas. Then we move on to episode 15, Suddenly Everything Has Changed. This episode came out February 24th, 2004. Lucas comes home in this episode, but he's supposed to be taking it easy, and he kind of pushes himself, which ends up making him go back to the hospital. But at first he comes home, Brooke's redid his room, once again adding on to her character, making the audience like her even more, to be upset when this is about to happen. But Luke breaks up with Brooke because he wants to be with Peyton, but he doesn't tell her the reason he breaks up with Brooke. He gives her this lame excuse. She gets really upset, obviously, and Peyton lies to her when she sees her. She doesn't know how to react. Lucas is wanting to be back with Peyton in this episode, but they're unsure how to about their future together. So they're once again trying to sneak around, and he even walks to Peyton's house, which this is another thing too that I wanted to point out. There's a lot of walking in the show. There's a lot of walking around Tree Hill, and I guess because I've been to Wilmington and how I see Tree Hill, it's like I don't know how you guys walk so much and get around, like especially when they're like the characters like walking to the river court and different stuff. It's like you guys walked across these very busy bridges to get across the river. That's dangerous. The one Lucas walking to Peyton's house, that's a bit far too in reality, but I can believe that more than them walking across the bridges, because that's like obviously that's how Tree Hill is too. You see those bridges and know that it's across the river, but that happens. It wears Luke out. He has to go back to the hospital. So all this is happening. Peyton calls Karen to let her know that she's taking Lucas to the hospital, which they make up the story that he was at the river court. But Brooke walks into Lucas's room and sees the webcam, revealing, we find out at the end of the episode, that she knows about the relationship now with Lucas and Peyton. They're not friends anymore. That ends their friendship so far in this season, and builds on what other stuff's about to happen. Then we get to episode 16. The first cut is the deepest, yes. Sheryl Crow is in this episode. It's about Haley trying to get Sheryl Crow's tickets, and at the end, Sheryl Crow shows up and wants a cup of coffee, and Haley says, if you play a song, get a cup of coffee each for each song, and Sheryl Crow does it. The biggest thing about this episode that's the most surprising to me is that this was actually the 3/4 season finale. And I'm really confused why, because it's not a bad episode, but it's like definitely not in the best of the season. I think it's one of my probably, guess, one of my least favorite episodes of the season. You have Lucas, upset about everything, and he goes out with his fake ID that Brooke gave him, and for a drink, ends up hooking up with this new character we meet, who is Nikki. From the start, is just unlikable, annoying character. And then at the end, I guess the biggest cliffhanger, or is the biggest cliffhanger of this episode, is you find out that Nikki, who just hooked up with Lucas, is actually the mother of Jenny and the ex of Jake. So that's going to play into problems in the future. But overall, it's okay. I guess the other biggest part of this episode is that Nathan, he's just trying to decide who he wants to live with. It's Deb and Dan. Dan's holding this secret over Deb's head, trying to get custody of Nathan, something that she did in the past, which was revealed in this episode, that she cheated on Dan when Nathan was younger. And not only did she cheat on Dan, but she went to live or stay with whoever this guy was, and sort of abandoned Nathan for a summer. And apparently Dan was really awful and pushed. That was I guess they try to make it out in this episode, that was the start of Dan pushing Nathan really hard, but I feel like that's just his character too, so I don't really know about that. But it obviously wasn't a terrible thing that she did, and Nathan's really upset about it and tells Haley he doesn't want to live with any of them. She says, well, let's look into your options, and at the end of the episode he decides to get emancipated, which will play also bigger into the season as we go forward towards the finale. Overall, you looking back, I don't know how believable it was for Nathan to get emancipated. I guess at first it sort of made sense, but I don't know. It was a good character move, but I'm not sure how believable it was. And then we get into episode 17, which is the 3/4 mid-season premiere, when they come back. Now, this came out a month after the last episode, which came out at the beginning of March. This came out in the beginning of April. It was April 6, 2004. It's called Spirit in the Night. And it was about all the characters pretty much, going to Charlotte for a cheerleading competition / a basketball game. And Lucas is still out, so he's not playing, but he's there to watch the team. He wants to be a part of the team. Haley's also there. I can't remember. I was watching. I can't remember how she ends up going, but she ends up being able to go. And Karen and Larry, Peyton's dad, end up going as well to be his chaperones, which this is this little start of their sort of relationship that never really made sense to me, other than adding a problem between her and Keith further, and making things a little weird for Lucas and Peyton. I wonder if, because with shows there's always things that they kind of try out and kind of get audience reactions or see where the storyline could go. I wonder if there was ever a point where they were let's make Karen and Larry a real thing, and push that moving forward in the show, and see how that would complicate Lucas and Peyton's relationship, and just see, I don't know, I guess that would be the main thing moving forward if Karen and Larry had became a real thing, which they don't, obviously, because that relationship just was kind of boring. But they go to Charlotte in this episode, and we also get a bigger role for Mouth, not a big role, but this is the start of him becoming a bigger supporting character throughout the rest of the series. He comes in and shows them dance moves that the other cheerleading team had, so they end up practicing all night for this competition. And one of the team members got sick, had to go home. Haley ends up coming in as a sub, and Peyton's really trying hard with Brooke in this episode to make things up to her and try to be her friend again, which in the end doesn't happen. It was as Brooke says, it was fun while it lasted, but we're still not friends. And Peyton tells her, well, you may not be my friend, but I'm your friend. We also get a little bit more sprinkled in of Lucas and Nathan's relationship in this episode, and them checking out the court together and kind of building on that, which I like too, because there's no point in this season that there's just a light bulb that's turned on and Nathan and Lucas are friends and everything's cool. there's moments that you start to build, and they start to have kind moments together, start to like each other, but then they pull back again, and you're like, these moments don't make up for our past relationship and our father and all this stuff. Like, they build up to their relationship, especially in the future, which I think this episode further improves that. And it's like a couple episodes in the future, after this episode, they're pulling back again, but they did it nicely. I liked it. Also, this episode starts to make Haley popular, which is interesting. Lucas is already there, I guess, when he joined the team, and a little bit after that, he starts becoming this popular character when he starts dating Brooke, whatnot. Haley's been dating Nathan for a while now, but once she joined that cheerleading team, now apparently she's like becoming popular. All right, well, we'll be back with the next episode here shortly.